Come on in, Clark County. It's Rob Anderson with Reform Clark County, and today we have a special guest in studio, Bryan Shull, who's running for Clark County Council District 1. And so we're just going to have a little conversation and get to know each other.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate being invited to your show and look forward to talking a little bit more about what's going on in the county and what I have in mind for common sense governance.
Yeah, so you're running for Clark County Council District 1, and what do you think has prepared you for something like this? I mean, besides maybe a training in the circus, or maybe Army special teams or something like that. What has kind of prepared you think, to run for Clark County Council?
That's fantastic. The juggling acts that I left behind in the 80s, they might work. I would say decades of experience in public-private partnerships, in running businesses, in I think pulling hundreds of permits in dozens of different jurisdictions, in building and growing businesses, even selling a business here and there. My degree in renewable energy engineering might give me a little bit of an advantage in helping to define smart policy or direction. So I think that I have decades of experience that have led me to this point where it's really time for me to give back to my home. This is where I was born and raised, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, because if I remember so, I saw where you grew up here. I think you went to school around here. I mean, you've kind of this isn't something you just moved into.
Nope, I was born and raised here in Clark County. I spent a lot of time in Richfield. I grew up in Richfield as well, but Minnehaha Elementary School in St. John's area of Vancouver, and graduated from Hudson's Bay High School. So yeah, I'm from here. This is my watershed.
Yeah, this is your stomping grounds.
This is my stomping grounds.
Yeah. So as you look at, the current council and, what's missing? Because really, if you're going to run, it's because you think something's missing. So what's missing? Why are you running?
Common sense is missing. I believe in most government agencies these days, they're run and led by well-meaning people who really want to serve the community, but the policies that are enacted and grow on top of each other it's ridiculous. It's mind-numbing, and I want to bring some common sense back to the process, not just individual policies, but to strip policies back and to their original ideas and find out why we're doing things. And if why we're doing them is this is the great natural progression, then great, we keep on course and we just keep course correcting. But I think there's a lot of things that we do that we've lost track years and years ago of what we're supposed to be doing to be stewards of the county citizens' dollars, and I want to restore some common sense to that process.
Yeah. So as you kind of think about that and look at the landscape, I mean, you've grown up here. You have deep roots. What's the pressing issues as you kind of, as a business owner, as you kind of look at your neighborhood, you look at your community? I mean, what do you think is the pressing issues that are, in mind regarding Clark County Council, that you would be looking to address?
Sure. Thanks. Well, not to use the buzzword of the day, but real affordability is on everyone's mind, and there are a lot of things that are tied to how we can navigate that conversation. But that's a starting point. As a businessman, I own Trapdoor Brewing, and I see firsthand on a day-to-day basis what the government is doing to the cost of our doing business, which raises the cost on everything we do. And everybody that wants to go out to dine or something like that, the increase that is being mandated upon the businesses is really affecting affordability. Tax increases. We have policies that increase taxes first. It's pretty clear that we have a spending problem across the state and in the county and in the city. And I don't think that anyone at the county takes a step back to look at the spending before they look to raise taxes. I know that we've had several tax increases. It seems to be the first response is we just need to find some more revenue. Well, the people that are the pockets that they're reaching into have a lot of dust balls in them. So it's really,
As a business owner, I mean, that would always be great to just like say, oh, it's a revenue issue, where
Yeah.
you got to look at your books and go,
not often. It's every day. When I get a mandate for increase in any of my costs, which across the number of businesses that I run, it's pretty much every day, every week I'm dealing with this. If I just simply increase my prices, I price out certain segments of the population, and we are there now where we're just continually pricing out people that cannot afford to do some of the simple pleasures in life, like dine at the restaurant that I own. We're losing segments of the population, and the affordability issues become real quality of life issues, and that's what I'm seeing in the county when my grandkids, when their parents talk about leaving the state because of affordability, that really gets my attention. It's like I want to be able to hang out with my grandkids because that's kind of the fruits of life, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running.
yeah, yeah, we're seeing that. Obviously, it's much bigger than just the county. It's we're seeing it in Olympia.
Yeah.
We're seeing it all over, really, of affordability, and we hear people talk about it, but then we see where they raise taxes, or then they vote for higher costs in doing business, and it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit, like, so what does this really mean? So I think it's spot on. What any other kind of issues that you think are maybe not getting the attention that they need and that you'd like to see?
Another hot button, but I see it every day because I have a business in downtown Vancouver, is the homelessness issue. It's on a regular basis that we deal with people struggling with mental health issues or addiction issues, and they come to sleep on my patio, or they leave garbage in the space, or they come and yell and scream at my customers that are sitting on the patio. That's just my personal experience on a regular basis in front of my business. But I live in the real world, and I drive around the town, and I walk around the town, and we find that to be a pretty crushing problem for a lot of people that are facing real struggles. There's nothing simple about the problems that these people are facing when you're gripped with addiction.
Yeah,
it's a horrible experience, and I think that we're managing it. I think we've been managing it poorly, and I would like to be a part of the solution. I think I have some pretty good ideas that are now catching on. I mean, people are understanding it's not a housing issue. Housing first is not working because you don't treat the reasons why people end up on the streets. And so coming to grips with the reality that it's going to be challenging, but we can do better. I think some of the fake compassion that we're kind of meting out with policy is actually pretty cruel, and I think we can do better.
Yeah. When I was in this space, I worked for a homeless provider nonprofit, and I remember being at a little convention, and so someone came up to me and was like, so what do you think's the deal with homelessness? Like, is it because they're lazy? Is it because, this or that and whatever? And I could just see how, they were kind of just reducing it too much. And I just said, pain.
Oh, yeah.
Personal pain. Like so many times it starts with, when they're kids or teenagers and they turn to drugs and alcohol to kind of deal with personal trauma and pain. And, it soothes for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's not. And it becomes the bigger problem, and from my perspective, that was rampant. I saw that every day in the homeless shelters and in the services. And it does seem, I think you're right in saying that, there seems to be more acceptance that, which seems really obvious, which is the housing first model, harm reduction models. Hey, I don't think they're working. And all you have to do is just take a look at, Portland spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, Seattle spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and Vancouver and Clark County. I mean, we don't want that. Like we
cannot replicate those and expect different results. the idea that you can walk out with a truck full with full staff and a truck full of bags that have foil for smoking fentanyl and clean pipes and call that, that was built on the backs of like clean needles because we didn't want to spread contagious diseases. But the idea that that's harm reduction is insane. Mm-hmm. And if that migrates into this area, then we have a real problem. That's going to be that's a tragedy to even think that we would entertain the idea of putting those people on payroll or giving grants to agencies that promote that stuff. That's insane. That we cannot let that happen here.
Yeah, but it is kind of creeping in, and I know that some of the homeless numbers they say are down, but it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like we've turned the corner on this. So I think kind of being bold, like what you're saying of saying, hey, I think we need to maybe look at this a little different. That'd be good.
If we're going to attract, we have become a destination for homeless around the nation. They're one-way tickets from other cities. That's a real thing. If you don't know that's happening, it is. The idea that we're a destination for that, well, let's do something proper with that then. If we're going to have people come here, I'm not saying that we want to set up infrastructures where the taxpayers are holding the bag for millions of people from around the country, but let's do it proper. Let's treat the real problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. So switching gears a little bit, So the Charter Review Commission, is chugging along and doing their work, and they're looking into some new charter amendments. One of them is a prioritization of public safety. Now, they just recently announced that they're going to move that to 2027 ballot, potentially. But there's another one of a supermajority requirement for future tax increases. So instead of just a simple majority now, it takes a supermajority, which isn't really unprecedented. You need a supermajority, in fact, to do a charter amendment from the council, and also for an emergency declaration or emergency ordinance. Glenn Young, who's the incumbent who's running, he came out strongly. Like I was listening to this, and he came out strongly against those two issues. I'm wondering, where do you stand with those charter amendment proposals?
I do look forward to stabilizing the budgets for public safety. We've had a few years of really looking down on the first responders that we all call. We call 911 when we have a problem. So stabilizing the budgets for those, I think, is critical. We lag behind the rest of the nation on a per capita basis, the number of sheriffs or deputies that are out, the number of law enforcement that supports the population. So I think that we need to stabilize the funding so we can do better at that. Because that, you can't have a functioning civilization or society unless you have some law enforcement to keep us from doing silly things. The 2/3 majority for tax increases, I think, is very wise. We don't have a revenue problem necessarily. We have a spending problem, and every time when you don't realize it or you don't approach governance that way, then every time you have a shortfall, you look to the taxpayers to extract more wealth from them. And on an individual basis, like say just a straight dollar amount is one thing, but these increases in percentages, they erode away at the ability of families and businesses to even just function. And so, again, I think it's common sense. It doesn't seem to be being applied as such currently, is to look at our spending first before we go and tax others, and to make it more difficult to just automatically make taxes first an option is fantastic. I would vote for that.
Yeah.
I would support that.
Yeah, well, I think that it's an important thing, and to me, if you're going to take money from the people, if you're going to raise taxes, I just think that maybe there should be a higher threshold than just what you typically see, and then also, I think it's a good idea to have maybe bipartisan support if you're going to do that, and studies have shown that it causes then, if money is not so easily accessible for the government, for politicians, they tend to then look at how they're spending and go,
Sure.
Wait a minute, if I can't just go get more from the ATM machine, maybe I should be a little more careful with how I'm spending. So I only see positives that can come out of that.
I agree. I think because we don't all as individuals make the best decisions, if our hand is forced where we have to make smarter decisions with other people's money, then let's force that hand. Let's make it more challenging for people to just say, "Oh, I'll just make these promises." Like, no, there's real consequences to keep extracting wealth from the citizenry.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have a background in renewable energy. How do you see that maybe play out if you are elected county council?
Well, just the process of becoming an engineer is itself advantageous. I have a process mentality of how I approach things. I look at things, defining boundaries, and then working within those boundaries and looking at the variables that go in and out. So engineering training is a great way to manage any system, because you learn how to manage systems. Renewable energy, I love the technologies that have been developed and the efficiencies that have been achieved by promoting those technologies in application. Fantastic. Like for instance, the efficiency of a solar module has gone up 200% in a decade. And so the amount that you have the acreage or square footage on your rooftop to achieve the same kilowatt production has halved. And that's not changing. That direction is still going the same. So now that there's kind of a grid parity, we say, where the cost of the production of it doesn't need to have to be heavily subsidized in most of the geographies in the United States. I think it's a fantastic technology. It has application and it has places where it doesn't belong. So I don't know, it's a lot of words for. I think it has application. I think it has its place. I think the technology. I think a broad mix of energy production is needed, so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. In recent years, the idea that we're going to decarbonize the energy production and go straight to all wind and solar and battery backup is unrealistic. At best, it is. It's an unreasonable request on the technologies themselves, and the costs of producing solar panels or producing wind and the full life cycle of those. It's not really taken into consideration in headlines. It's like it's super sexy technologies that it's free power. It's like, well, not even close to free power. The full life cycles need to be considered. So there's proper applications for it. There's uses for it. Let's talk about solar in particular. If you want to have a high percentage of your energy production in any given region dedicated from solar, it's going to take a lot of land use. And so that moves into land use decisions. So we're going to talk about that probably a little bit more. That's a hot button of what we do with our ag land and with how we grow. And so if we're going to say, oh, no, we have to have solar, well, you can't just put a mile square of solar panels in the desert in New Mexico and expect not to have massive transmission losses. And so there just needs to be a smarter thought process on how we're using these technologies. I want to use them, but they're not solving all the problems.
Yeah. No, that's insightful. I mean, that's not my space. I mean, I don't really know it that well, but it would be nice to kind of have someone who's on the county council who understands that, and because there's a lot of fanboy,
That's a fun word.
kind of approach where it's just like, ooh, let's do it. It's electric, or it's renewable, or whatever. But it's something that I think we have to be wise, or we could spend and waste a lot of money on flashy, cool, toys, in a way, when I think we have to be real smart about that.
Just put a box around the concept, define the inputs and the outputs, and make smart decisions.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I really appreciate the conversation. How do people find out more about your campaign?
You can find me at electbryanshull.com, and that is Bryan with a Y, BryanShull. I'm developing a Facebook page, but you can find all the information about me, how to see what my platform is, and how to help me in this at electbryanshull.com.
Great. Thanks, Bryan, for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So last week I talked about how the executive branch is running interference, trying to sabotage the Charter Review Commission, and not just from one side, the Republican side, but on the Democrat side too. We saw not one but two commissioners, one Republican, one Democrat, cry foul that the executive branch members are overreaching. They're using their position to try to undermine the charter review. Well, it's continuing on. So Greg Kimsey, the auditor, behind the scenes, I'm sure, has brought forward the Charter Amendment 18 that failed in 2024. Now, just to refresh your memory, this is the Charter Amendment initiative killer, because that's what it would do. So it would require that the auditor's opinion in the form of a financial estimate and the prosecuting attorney's legal opinion be put on not only the petitions as they collect signatures, if it's a signature initiative, but it would, or a referendum, but it would also be on the voter's pamphlet. But wait, there's more. It would also be on the ballot. So just imagine that we would give the PA's office and the auditor's office the power in which their opinion will really kind of shape up or down an initiative, because that's an incredible amount of power in which you would put this financial opinion or this legal opinion, which they're just opinions, to be able to shape it. There's no doubt that that would shape the outcome. And so the power of the PA's office, the auditor, they would have the ability to either kill or help initiatives as they see fit. This would be an initiative killer. So it got defeated. So thinking of democracy, right? It went on the ballot. It was defeated narrowly, but it was defeated by the voters. So what does Kimsey do? He brings it back channels it into the Clark County Council, where there has to be 4 votes to put it on the ballot for November. He wants to bring it back because this would be the executive branch wants to have control over the initiatives. They want to be able to, play God and say, this one, because we all know that financial assessments and legal opinions are commonly weaponized either to support or to derail initiatives. Happens all the time. And Kimsey, Mr. Democracy, apparently doesn't think that democracy works, because he wants to take it one more shot and bring it one more time to try to get a different result. So we need to be on the lookout on this and be ready to step into action, to come to county council meetings once it's announced and to give our opinions that Charter 18 has already died. Don't try to dig it up, but let it die, because this is initiative killer and we don't want. So I have to interrupt this to let you know an update that happened after recording, which is the proposed amendment for the charter review that the county council is going to consider is coming up before Clark County Council June 17th at 1 p.m. They have posted it on the agenda, and this will be very important to try to show up and give comment to push back on this. And there's 2 big changes. One is they are just limiting it to just financial opinions. And then they are going to expand it to charter amendments. So this is a clear attempt, like last week, what I mentioned of the executive branch is trying to interfere with a charter review. Not only are they trying to interfere with the future initiatives, referendums, mini initiatives, but they want to impact the charter review because they know that the prioritization of public safety has been deferred to 2027. So if they can get this on the ballot for this November 2026, get it passed, it will impact and be able to give them control or huge opinion to put on the ballot that will impact the outcome of that in 2027. So this is diabolical. It's Kimsey working through Sue Marshall to try to, expand the powers of the executive branch so that they have more control on which charter amendments get passed, which ones don't, and same thing with initiatives. So June 17th, 1 p.m., county council meeting, show up, give thoughtful, respectful, civil comment to push back on this just outrageous attempt for more power for the executive branch. Back to the programming. We don't want it. And by the way, it's a charter amendment in search of a problem where there's no problem. There's been no other initiatives, so it's not like the auditor's office has or the public's been flooded with county initiatives. Just not happening. So this is maybe personal. And it's clearly an overreach by the executive branch or wanting to control initiatives, which is a very sacred power of the people, in which they bragged that when they did the home rule charter, that this would bring the initiative powers to the people. But behind the scenes, they're trying to curtail it and put their thumb on the scale so that they can choose winners and losers. And we just can't let that happen. All right, so that's Reformcast for today. I hope you enjoyed the show, the conversation with Bryan Shull, and finding out a little bit more about continued overreach by the executive branch, or planning to. And so please hit the like button, share it, give and support. Go to givesendgo.com at Reform Clark County, so you can plug in Reform Clark County at givesendgo.com and support the show. And remember, you are the catalyst to reform with God's help. See you next time.